Hello, this is Stephen Pohl. Thanks for listening to the Ohio Business Podcast. If you want to make my day 10 times better, if you could go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review for this podcast, you could probably just search it, typing in Ohio Business Podcast. That would make my day infinitely better. But let's get to the show. Thanks. If you are wondering if this podcast sounded or sounds different, that is because it is. I accidentally did not record my audio, so I had to go back and re-record whatever question fit in the place of their audio. So I want to apologize first off to Bagel Box, and they were great guests. Make sure to check them out, and let's get into the show. Thank you. Welcome back to the Ohio Business Podcast. I'm your host Stephen Pohl, and today we are joined with the founders of Bagel Box. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us.
To get started, how about you tell us when Bagel Box was founded and what got you into the bagel business in the first place?
Yes, November of 2020. Just kind of always been interested in like the food industry and whatnot. And then once I founded it in November, kind of I think by the end of the month or even December, had some success locally in Toledo and kind of realized I needed some help. So kind of split the bill here between myself and Logan. And Logan's done some stuff as well in business before. And I knew him through at the University of Toledo. So I was on the football team there and Logan was an equipment guy. So that's how we originally met in college. So we've always kind of been in touch since then. And yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Were you working on Bagel Box, kind of getting that creative process going before the pandemic, or was it kind of created during the midst of the whole entire thing?
It definitely wasn't in the works before the pandemic. Being working from home was more like started getting my wheels turning, and then we had some people over for a family party, and my brother-in-law was like eating some. I made some bread for him. He's like, "I think you could sell this, man." And I was just like, "You think so?" And I was like, "I don't know what the Italian bread market is like in Toledo, but maybe like something else." So I started to think about it and get into it. And one of my other friends, who's a entrepreneur who flips houses, I was talking to him. I was like, "I've been feeling lately like I've got like a crazy idea. I just want to run by you. I know you have your own business." He's like, "What is it? Just tell me. Don't be afraid." And I told him, I was like, "I think I could open like a bagel business in Toledo." And he was like, "Do it." So then I just went with it, and then here we are.
COVID really affected a lot of small restaurant service industry type businesses. How did COVID affect Bagel Box?
Um, so we operate under something called cottage food laws. So really, the pandemic, I feel like a lot of restaurant owners would hate to hear it, but it didn't really affect us because we work out of our home or my home. Um, and that's where we do the baking, where you can actually just residentially do it out of a home kitchen. So you don't need to be in like a commercial kitchen. We don't need to be um, kind of in like our own place. We can just do it in where we live. So that kind of helped with the whole pandemic thing because it was where we already were to begin with for the most of the time working from home.
Now, I found you guys through Instagram. Are you offering services through retail, or are you just doing wholesale? What's kind of the makeup of the company look like?
It's it's both. Um, so I don't know, Logan, if you want to go into that.
Uh, yeah. So we got bulk of our orders come through wholesale right now, but we do offer like retail stuff. But the delay time on that's like 2 days because we have to make it to order. So wholesale is really the biggest thing, but we're in like a couple different markets and well, like 5 coffee shops or something like that. So we're growing and expanding.
As a relatively young new business, how what's your sales process look like? What was the kind of your first sale? Kind of walk me through that if you can.
So it kind of for me happened on accident. The original post I made when I opened it originally on my own was when I put it in like I live in the neighborhood in Toledo called the Beverly neighborhood, and there's a Facebook page called Beverly, Toledo, Ohio, and I posted in it, and it happened to be that one of the people who bought our stuff out of there was the in-law of the one of the owners of a coffee shop called Maddie and Bella Coffee Roasters in Toledo. There's two different coffee shops, and they were the first ones. And then that kind of gave us some credibility once we put that on social media. And then we just kind of cold called from there and said, hey, we have this product and want you to try it. We'll give you some samples, and usually it works out.
So outside of sales, what are you guys kind of doing on the marketing front? I know you're working that Instagram angle, but any other platforms or any other type of marketing tactics?
Yeah.
Social media is great because it's free, and just anything to broaden the brand. So we've been pushing that stuff. Um, I mean, nothing really too crazy with that. It's just social media. Grow it.
Yeah. We've gotten a lot of followers in the past. I mean, it is nice to have when somebody else announces like now carrying Bagel Box bagels, you kind of piggyback off of like their hard work of already growing their brand, and it's kind of nice that like all of a sudden like you get a massive boost in followers next day, which helps, and it just kind of multiplies.
Now, do you both have careers, and then are you doing this on the side? Was there any work experience that you had previously that kind of helped you build Bagel Box?
For me, I work a day job. I'm in purchasing at an automotive company in Toledo. And this is right now just nights and weekends.
For me, I actually quit working UPS to like do this like full-time grind. I go to school as well at UT for engineering, not business, surprisingly. But it's a grind, man. It's a grind. We're committed to it. That's for
And
sure.
then previously too, Logan had some food industry experience.
Yeah, so um like 3 years back now, like I started like before like Uber Eats and DoorDash and all that was in Toledo. I started up this thing. It was called My Town to Go, which was like a franchise that I heard about through like playing video games with my buddy out in Iowa. He's like, dude, I just got some Wingstop delivered. I'm like, shut up. No, you didn't. And he tells me about this My Town to Go. So then I hit them up. And so blah, blah, blah. A few years later, like my first like 6 months, I did probably like 20K in sales, like nothing like wild. But then like the next year, like that for the entirety of the year, I did like 100K in sales, which was like, what? Because like at the time, like I was 3 years into college, and like I was just doing this on the side, and it just blew up to where I stopped going to college for a couple years to like work on that. And that fell apart because one, I like didn't know how great it was when I had it. Like you're sitting there and all these deliveries are happening, you're making money, and you don't have to do anything, you get lax. And that's what I did. So like I wasn't like expanding, pushing, but just failing and getting that knowledge, I can bring that to here. Like, hey, let's not make these mistakes. I already did them. And it was crazy, but just like it's a big learning experience with that because it was cool because it was before Uber Eats and everything. And like one of my biggest uh, like customers was like Jeep. I was like 60% of my sales were literally just delivering Jeep people food.
Yeah.
So when did that start up? When did you kind of end those operations?
I think I shut it down in 16 or 17.
So you had Uber Eats and DoorDash before Uber Eats and DoorDash, huh?
Yeah, they weren't even here yet, man. It was crazy. So like when I was pitching that idea to them, they're like, either they're like all for it, like yes, I've been waiting for this, or like, what are you talking about? You're gonna have people deliver my food that don't work here.
Yeah.
But it I had like a few places. It was pretty cool.
Well, through that startup, what were some of the things that you learned that you can kind of carried on into Bagel Box?
So through that, it was like a franchise thing. So there wasn't a lot of control that I had as far as like website design and things like that, or if there was any like system outages. Like that was a big thing that like they wouldn't like let us know when anything like went down. We kind of had to figure it out on our own. Like, oh, our site's down, and then hop on it, and then it was just a bunch of like third party stuff. Like they didn't have like the software, like they rented it out from somebody else. So there's just a lot too many people involved, right? But like the basis of it, it was all built off of social media. Like that's how I grew that entire thing. So just like learning from there, I can bring some of that here. Um, Other pitfalls with that is I just wasn't staying on top of my financials as well as I could have because it was just literally just blowing up so fast. I was like, I just got to keep going. But now being able to be like, all right, dude, so this is not fun to do all of your taxes in a month when you have 100K in sales. Like it's a lot of numbers.
All right.
But um, really, just being me and him, it'll cut out a lot of garbage that we have to wouldn't have to deal with having like presidents of the company, franchise stuff like that. It's literally just us, so we have control and we can grow it, and we both have a good vision in mind. You know, like this isn't the end all right here.
So, what are the next steps for Bagel Box? Where do you guys kind of see yourself going forward?
Zach?
I would say immediately is to actually pivot from doing the cottage bakery and do a commercial kitchen just purely because of capacity. I mean, like right now we mix every dozen in a KitchenAid mixer, and we have a residential oven where it's got like 2 racks in it. So like, from a commercial kitchen standpoint, they've got like 50 quart mixers and like 20 rack ovens, and there's like 2 or 3 of them in there. So it's just an efficiency thing. Yeah, we'll have like some more overhead costs, but it'll help us out in the long run with capacity.
So, where are you actually making the bagels at?
We literally use my kitchen right now, so it's literally takes up the whole kitchen and dining room when we bake. We bake like 2 days a week about right now. So yeah, it's one day on the weekend right now and one day in the middle of the week. It's a it's a production, that's for sure. Yeah.
After you kind of get that commercial kitchen, I mean, is there anything else that you are looking to kind of go after? Maybe go after retail more, or just keep expanding on the wholesale side?
So we're kind of there's multiple paths we're kind of pondering, I guess, right now. Um, we've thought about like doing our own commercial kitchen, doing our own food truck, doing our own brick and mortar. Like there's a lot of different options of what we have in mind, and I think it's kind of depending on a lot of things like the rate that we grow, how the kind of actual food market, restaurant market in Ohio bounces back from the pandemic. There's just a lot of different things to play off of.
Now, have you always had this entrepreneurial spirit? Because I mean, it is kind of a big leap from kind of having your own career and then kind of doing this on the side. Is there anything that kind of like played into that through your background at all?
For myself, yeah, I've done other small things on the side. Like I used to do, like I tried my hand at like the Amazon like arbitrage stuff when I was in college, selling on eBay, selling on Facebook. I've always had that kind of like side hustle type thing. Um, and I do have a good friend, like I mentioned, that is an entrepreneur. So like he's kind of inspired me a bit. And it definitely from the entrepreneurial spirit I've definitely always had. And my dad owned a couple restaurants like before I was born, and he always talked about it being in the restaurant industry. So it's definitely something that's always interested me. And this is kind of like it's a lower risk way to get my feet wet and grow as we can.
So what's the most popular bagel that you guys make right now?
The everything bagel is definitely the most popular, but I would say specific to that we make. What would you say, Logan? The herbs and cheese?
Herbs and cheese is slap. Oh
Yeah,
my.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is unbelievable.
Yeah, I love the everything bagel, but I gotta really try out these bagels though. But do you guys sell any other like cream cheese, any type of toppings to go along with the bagels? It seems like a good cross selling opportunity.
We do not. Um,
Wouldn't be a bad idea, really.
I
Bagel Box schmears wholesale.
yeah.
Oh my, there it is. Thank you, sir.
If one began a commercial kitchen, it would be a lot easier just because the laws are different. Like cottage bakery, you have to sell food that doesn't need refrigeration. It's called like a low risk food, but it would be possible in the future. But definitely, just like naturally, even if it wasn't like Bagel Box specific, like people love their cream cheese with bagels, so it's a obvious complementary product.
Oh, that'll be coming out with the food truck for sure.
Yeah,
The combinations are ridiculous. We've already been throwing ideas around,
yeah.
and just it's great.
What's the competition kind of look for you guys going forward?
I was gonna say in the Toledo area, there's a decent amount of food trucks, but most of them are all like lunch and dinner, and any of the breakfast trucks are all like coffee trucks. Like a lot of you can get like coffee like 20 different ways, and like maybe a donut on the side, or like a thing like a parfait or something that's like pre-packed. But there's not a lot of like made, ready to order or ready to eat, made to order um, like breakfast trucks. I don't think there's any that I know of that are specifically breakfast.
Outside of coffee shops, what are some of your other wholesale clients look like? And do you have any ideas of where else you can kind of go towards with wholesale?
Um, so we've got a few coffee shops. We a couple weeks ago, it's kind of hit or miss because of the way it works, but we've been in a deli for a special sandwich of the week. It's called Garden Harvest in Toledo. They're like a craft beer deli combination. It's a pretty nice place. And then our biggest wholesale customer right now is Walt Churchill's Markets. It's kind of like a local version of like a Whole Foods, I would say. Uh, there's one in Perrysburg and one in Maumee.
Is there any plan to move outside of the Toledo area?
Right now, no, we haven't talked about it, but there's like,
If we could ship bagels, if we could ship them,
yeah,
but we're constrained by the cottage food laws right now, really.
yeah.
Like,
The honestly, like, there's so much more like untapped potential. I feel like in the Toledo market for it that like that's so far down the road to move outside of the area.
How did you kind of find out about cottage food laws and what exactly really is it?
I like stumbled upon an article about the cottage food laws. I wasn't even like searching for like, is it legal to make bagels and sell it out of my home? Like, I never like Google searched that, but I stumbled upon it, and then like it just all happened to be like the perfect storm of when my mind was like churning on the idea. And then it's literally like if you Google Ohio cottage food laws, there's like a 2-page PDF that like that's the laws. It's not very lengthy. It's not like anything crazy. It's just like pretty basic stuff. Like you can't have like a commercial oven. You can't sell refrigerated foods and like just basic stuff like that. It's nothing where you're like the only thing that's a little difficult is that it has to be labeled a specific way. It has to say like this was produced in home and have like the weight and the name of it and the ingredients and all of that. But other than that, it's not that crazy.
So, what are kind of your both of your roles in Bagel Box, and how do you kind of like delegate the work between the two of you?
It's a good question. So we kind of split, and it's kind of changed as we've grown. Um, but right now, I do. Me and Logan both do the baking. I do like customer contact. and I'm starting to pick up more on social media. And then Logan, you can kind of get into what you're more involved in.
So I do like all the prepping and just inventory and make sure everything's ready to go for the bake day. Um, so it doesn't sound that crazy, but it takes a couple hours to get all of it together because we have to literally pre-measure each dozen, which sucks. But it is what it is. Right? It's the grind. So that's a big thing. I was doing the social media when I first started helping Zach because I was like, hey, because he reached out to me and I was like, yeah, dude, I'm down to help, but like free trial here, I'll do some social media stuff for you. And then as we started growing bigger, he's like, dude, I'm gonna need you to start baking a little bit more. I'm like, all right, bet, cool, here we go. So then I started baking more and more and more, and I was like, well, UPS, I'm sorry, I have to go. I
Yeah.
have bagels to make.
Yeah.
So I bake it, bake them, prep them, deliver them,
Yep. Deliveries.
uh, take some good pictures, content create.
What's the biggest cost right now that you guys, what's the biggest thing that you're spending money on right now?
The so that's like kind of one of the things in the past month I'd say we've gotten pretty good at is kind of cutting costs, and it's not like we were hemorrhaging money for no reason. It's just that now that we're doing a higher volume, we can buy ingredients in higher volume, and we have like the cash flow to keep doing that. So 100%, I would say is the ingredients. Like we're buying, like before I'd have to go to the store and buy like, we would make like 40 dozen bagels or something like that on a Sunday. And I'd have to buy like 80 pounds of flour. Well, they only sell the flour that we were using in like 5-pound bags. So I'd have to
But
go to
now,
like 4 or 5 different Krogers just to get the bags. And now we're getting 50-pound bags like he's got there. So now we go to Sofo Foods in Toledo, and I bought like 400 pounds of flour, and that'll set us good up for like 3 to 4 weeks. So now it's just like being smarter about that, like spending less time on that because it doesn't like add value to the company. It's just kind of like wasting time doing things that you have to do anyways. But like bulk ingredients, like
saves money too.
Yeah, it saves a lot of money. Like this past week, we figured out like our top three like most cost per ounce or cost per gram, and then we figured out ways to buy it in bulk. And over the year, that'll save us like $1,000 just in ingredient costs, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when your business is like selling a couple $100 worth of bagels, or maybe $1,000 worth of bagels a week, it's like a lot of money when it adds up by percentage too. So it's just that kind of thing.
What's the biggest challenge that you guys face and what Bagel Box face right now?
The biggest challenge right now is just like it's easy for us to do the wholesale, and obviously with wholesale, like the pricing's a little different. So the margins aren't as high in wholesale. And it's easy though because you have like those recurring orders where it's like, you're gonna have 20 dozen here, 5 dozen here, 2 dozen here every week these days. That's pretty simple. But when it comes to retail, like that 48-hour window kind of makes it tough because one, like if you're the consumer, I'm the consumer, I don't want to wait 2 days to buy bagels. I want to go buy them now. So that kind of is a challenge to convince people to buy them directly from you instead of somewhere else. And I think that will just kind of is taking care of itself. Like I gradually see that we get more retail orders, but definitely that's the biggest challenge is just like convincing people like it's worth the 48-hour wait to get your bagels.
Um, it's a grind, man. Like making bagels is no joke. Like when you're making like 45 dozen in a day, like
Yeah.
that's a grind.
I
Like
mean,
it's not.
last night, how late were we up making bagels?
Oh, dude, I probably didn't get home till 4. I think. something
Yeah,
like that.
it was
3:30.
nuts. We
Yeah.
started at like 5 o'clock about, and I think you left about like 2:33.
Yeah.
And it's just it's crazy. Like that's where we're at. We're like, yeah, we could split that up into 2 days, but then it'd be like
Meh.
another day into the kitchen, and it's just kind of it's like a I don't know, it's like a necessary evil almost right now. But getting into that commercial kitchen would literally like probably cut that in more than half. So yeah.
How can people find you? How can they find Bagel Box? How can they reach out?
So if you go, it's like a Square site. So it's bagelbox.square.site. But on social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter, Bagel Box Toledo for both of them. I would say that's probably one of the biggest accomplishments we've had is that started in November, and today we hit 600 followers on Instagram. That's not bad for slinging bagels out of the house, so can't complain with social media following right now.
Words of advice for any entrepreneurs out there listening?
Stay grinding.
Yeah. Keep your nose